I've been on the carnivore diet for well over a year now, and in this video I'll share with you some of the best lessons that I've learned along the way. The first lesson is a very simple one. Be aware of hunger cues. Most people have been conditioned to eat based on emotions or on a schedule. They ignore their natural hunger signaling, which causes them to either undereat or overeat. Personally, I was convinced growing up that I need to eat 5 meals a day in order to gain muscle, whereas other people are convinced that they need to eat only 1 meal a day in order to lose weight. When you're on a carnivore diet, your hunger signaling reverts back to how it's meant to be. So whenever you're hungry, eat a large meal till you're no longer hungry. You don't need to eat just because it's a certain time of day or because you're bored. If you have weight to lose, you'll start to drop the pounds, and if you don't have weight to lose, when you're hungry, it's your body's way of saying, look, we need a bit more energy, so listen to this and you will feel your best. This brings me to my next point, portion sizes. For so long, we've all been convinced that we need to seriously limit our portion sizes in order to lose weight. Now, this is true in other diets because these ultra-processed foods provide no satiety. They provide you with basically no nutrients. They contain lots of carbohydrates, which cause massive blood sugar fluctuations, which again affects with your hunger signaling. But with carnivore, because these foods are so satiating, if you allow yourself to eat till you're full, what you'll find is you don't need to eat for a long time after your meal. By restricting the amount you eat each meal, all you're doing is not satiating yourself properly, and you'll stay hungry and continue to eat more and more meals. Now, you want to make sure with these meals that you're having enough fat with them. So many people fear fat because it's been ingrained into them their entire life that meat causes all of these issues. This is just simply not the case. Heart attacks, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, all of these things only became prevalent once we introduced these refined oils and carbohydrates into our diet. But exactly how much is the right amount? I think a great place to start is a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 gram of fat for 1 gram of protein. Now, in terms of how much you should be eating person to person, I think a great thing to do is to work out exactly what your goal weight is. So if your goal weight's 170 pounds, have 170 grams of protein and 170 grams of fat. Another key thing you need to think about on carnivore is your salt intake. Now, salt's another one of those things where they've been convinced that it's bad for them, even though there's no evidence to support this. Now, as a result of this, when people start carnivore, they put a very small amount of salt on their food. Now, this is a problem because the ultra-processed foods that most people consumed in the past, before they started carnivore, are very high in salt. This causes a number of issues for people when they start carnivore. The reason being is that carnivore is a low carbohydrate diet. Now, because you're not consuming carbohydrates, you have a lot less blood sugar fluctuations. And the thing with blood sugar fluctuations is that when your blood sugar elevates, another hormone called insulin also elevates to bring your blood sugar back down. Now, insulin has a number of roles in the body. Along with bringing your blood sugar back down, another role insulin has is that it helps your kidneys retain electrolytes. Now, salt, which is largely comprised of sodium, is an electrolyte. So you start carnivore and you start retaining a lot less of the sodium. Not enough sodium causes your body to retain less water, and as a result you become dehydrated, which can lead to cramps, poor energy, brain fog. So when you first start carnivore, you need to put quite a bit of salt on your meat. When I first started, people were concerned about me with how much salt I was putting on, but this was what my body craves. Any excess salt you consume is just urinated out anyway. It's not going to cause you any harm. The rule is the salt to taste. Our body is this complex machine and it knows exactly what we require. So even if you put quite a bit of salt on your meat, if it still doesn't taste to the saltiness that you would like, this is a sign that you need more salt. Now, what you'll find over time is your body gets used to this low carbohydrate state, and therefore it starts retaining electrolytes more effectively. So you'll start instinctively putting less and less salt on. If I had one of those super salty steaks I had when I first started carnivore, it would taste terrible. I use a lot less salt now, simply because that is what tastes good to me. This brings me to my next point. Respond as required. On carnivore, everything is changing. Your entire gut microbiome, which is largely centered around what you eat, that all is to change. Your body's getting used to running from carbohydrates to running on fats. Your body's essentially going through a massive reset, but for the first time in its life, it's in its natural state like it's meant to be, so you can actually listen to cravings. On other diets, cravings are a complete lie. The food companies, they use your own mind against you. They stack it with ingredients that they know are going to make you addicted to it. Even things like fruit have been crossbred to be ridiculously sweet. But on carnivore, the cravings you get are true cravings. If you're craving fat, it means you've been eating too lean and your body needs some more fat in order to build its hormones and feel the best. If we're craving salt, it's like we just talked about. Your body needs salt to maintain proper fluid balance. These cravings aren't lying to you. It is exactly what your body needs, so you should listen to it. The next lesson is to not be fooled. When you start out, it can be a bit tough. Like I said, we have all of these changes. Your stomach can be a bit messed up due to the microbiome change and due to the fact that you've massively increased the amount of fat you're consuming. Now, for fat to be broken down, it requires something known as bile. But here's the thing about bile. It only slowly upregulates. So you start carnivore, you massively increase the amount of fat you're consuming, but it takes a while for this bile to catch up. And this right here can lead to loose stools. You might also not be feeling your best, due to the fact that your body's so used to running on carbohydrates and it's taken a bit of time to get used to running on fats. And when you're going through this adjustment period, it can be so easy for people from the outside looking in to say, wow, there must be something going wrong if you are this way. Now, there are so many misconceptions out there, and when people you know see you going through this, chances are they've probably got something to say. See, I told you that carnivore diet was a complete fad. If carnivore was so good, why are you experiencing these things? The problem is for most people is that they've been eating the wrong things the entire time, and the body is trying to rid them from their system. Your guts are so used to eating these plants, which are not part of our species appropriate diet, that it has the gut microbiome centered around it. Your body's so used to running on carbohydrates, which is not its preferred fuel source, but because you've been eating this way for so long, it's taken a bit of time to adjust to its new fuel source. If you simply give it time to get through this adjustment, you will feel the best you've ever felt. The next lesson is to avoid listening to others. When it comes to nutrition, and I'm sure you all know this, everyone thinks they're an expert. But the crazy thing is, all of these so-called experts get their nutrition advice from mainstream media headlines. They'll be scrolling through their news and some garbage fake news website has published another article on how bad cholesterol is, or how red meat intake is associated with some bad health outcome. What you'll notice with every single one of these headlines is they use the word associated. They never use the word proven. Now, I can show you an association between people eating ice cream being much more likely to get attacked by sharks. Now, is this association due to the fact that sharks love ice cream so much that they're much more likely to attack a human that's eaten one? Or is it due to the fact that people who eat ice cream are much more likely to have been to a beach than just your regular, everyday person? Something tells me it's not the ice cream the sharks like. And this is exactly how these studies work. They get two groups of people, a high vegetable group and a high meat group. A high meat group. But in reality, everything is counted as meat. You had a burger, that's meat. You had lasagna, that's meat. Anyone who eats ultra-processed food that just happens to have meat in it is put in the meat group. And then in the vegetable group, because these people are consuming high quantities of vegetables, they're much less likely to eat processed food. So they compare two groups, a vegetable group and a meat group. And have a guess what they find. The people eating all the ultra-processed chemicals have worse health outcomes. But no, it's not the chemicals in the food. It is red meat is associated with a 14% increase in bowel cancer. So they'll have this sample size, let's say of 100,000 people, and 3 people in the meat group will get bowel cancer, and 1 person in the vegetable group will get bowel cancer. And have a guess what the news prints the next day as a nice big headline. Eating meat gives you a 300% increase in likelihood that you'll develop bowel cancer. And these people run with it. They don't know how poor the design of these studies are. Even the scientists who do this study, they know that it's fake science, but have a guess who pays them. What I find funniest of all about these people is when you poke at them a little bit and say, okay, so why does red meat cause all these things? And then you point out to them how the first heart attack wasn't until the year 1912, how cancer rates were only at 6% in the year 1900, whereas they're above 40 now, and how coincidentally, after the year 1905, which was when we introduced processed foods, all of these diseases start to skyrocket. And you pose them the question, so you're telling me all of these modern diseases are caused by the one food we've always eaten? They sit there stumped. They have no idea what they're talking about. They just fall for the mainstream narrative, which is also something we see with a lot of political candidates. People don't even know why they hate them, but because they see on the television every night, this person bad, it gets hardwired into them that this person's bad. Essentially, every single person I know who's done carnivore at some point or another has been told by uninformed opinions that it's bad for them. It's incredibly unfortunate that public opinion is this way, but you just simply have to ignore what they're saying and trust the process. And the final lesson is that diet isn't absolutely everything. A lot of people will go on carnivore so they've optimized their diet, but every other factor in their life is completely messed up. They're not getting enough sleep, they're not getting enough sun, they're incredibly stressed out. If you can try to optimize all the carnivore related factors like we've talked about in this video, as well as the non-carnivore factors in your life, you are really setting yourself up to succeed. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how do I know carnivore diet is even the right diet? In this video right here, I break down all the reasons we know that a carnivore diet is the optimal human diet.